Shalom, I am Valerie Moody of Covenant Footsteps Ministries. My website is vmoody.com. You can go there for resources or to sign up for my weekly teaching. You can also contact me from that website or send me an email at hi@vmoody.com. This week we are discussing KORACH or Korah. This parsha, which begins in Numbers 16:1 and ends with Numbers 18:32, is the 38th Torah portion on the annual cycle. Now let's talk about the number 38 for a moment. The Torah reading cycle is a man-made schedule. It was put together by the rabbis about 500 years ago. But even a man-made reading schedule can support the divine nature of the Bible. In this case, the number 38 is related to the actions which occur in this parsha. Allow me to explain. 38 is the numeric value of the Hebrew word golah. Golah has three meanings, which become three actions in this Torah portion. Golah means to expose, to reveal, and also to go into exile. This parsha involves all three of these elements. It concerns exposing and revealing something that is hidden. It also concerns exile and helps to explain the reason for Israel's lengthy exile. Korah, a Levitical leader in the camp, is hiding something. He is hiding rebellion. When his rebellion is exposed and revealed, we understand the reason for the Israelites' prolonged wilderness exile. Rebellion extends the length of the exile in the wilderness from a few months to 40 years. The generation which leaves Egypt in the Exodus must die in the wilderness before the Israelites can enter the land due to hidden rebellion. These are the actions associated with the word golah. To regroup and restate these bullet points, this is the 38th parsha of the annual Torah cycle. The number 38 is the numeric value of the Hebrew word golah. Golah means to expose, reveal, and exile. This parsha involves all three elements of exposing, revealing, and remaining in exile. Korah, for whom this parsha is named, is in the biblical spotlight for only a fleeting moment. But he is one of the most complicated characters in the Torah. His legacy is equally complex and contributes to the deaths of nearly 15,000 people. Korah's rebellion stems from a flagrant violation of Leviticus 21, verse 5. Allow me to explain. The name Korach means bald head, or to make oneself bald. This refers to the ancient practice of cutting one's hair as a sign of mourning for the dead. This ancient custom is strictly forbidden in Leviticus 21:5 for a reason. Any Israelite effort to mimic pagan customs is an affront to Israel's covenant with the Almighty. Intentional baldness is a symbolic gesture. Hair depicts being in covenant and being under authority. Intentional baldness then depicts removing oneself from the covenant and from under authority. This was Rabbi Paul's point in 1 Corinthians 11:5. He said that a woman who prophesies publicly without covering her head is the same as a woman whose head is bald. It was believed that Korah deliberately shaved his head bald to imitate the Egyptian priests and to distinguish himself. Ancient writings depicted Korah not just as a patriarch of a Levitical family, but as a former minister in Pharaoh's court. Did Korah shave his head bald to declare that he had removed himself from the covenant of the Torah? If so, his rebellion was evident long before he challenged Moses in this parsha. Korah was not an outsider. As a member of the Kohathites, one of the Levitical families, he was among those entrusted with the special responsibility of carrying the Ark of the Covenant in the wilderness whenever the Israelites broke camp and the tabernacle moved. His family transported the Mishkan's most sacred furnishings on their shoulders: the Ark of the Covenant, the table of showbread, the menorah, the altar of incense, the altar of sacrifice, and the sacred utensils. The sons of Kohath were granted this special privilege. Could Korah have gotten too close to the Ark of the Covenant? It's a good question. Perhaps his proximity to the Almighty's seat of power and the symbol of the covenant gave him illusions of grandeur. His conspiracy against Moses, despite his high calling, exposed him to be a rebel with a cause. The verb rebel is the Hebrew word ma'ra'ad. Ma means from. Rad is connected with the word for wandering aimlessly, without direction and purpose. So the verb rebel is from the Hebrew word marad. Marad means from. Ma means from. Rad is connected with wandering aimlessly, without direction or purpose. Now, rebellion grows from aimlessness. This idea is the opposite of the word Torah. Torah comes from the root yara, which means to have a goal, to have a purpose, and a direction. Korah's grievance in this parsha was an attempt to undermine the Torah and redirect the Israelites. He organized a force of 250 respected men to repudiate the leadership of Moses and Aaron. Stunned by the confrontation, Moses was unable to muster sympathy for Korah. Moses often interceded on behalf of others, but not this time. Israel was a theocracy, with priests ruling on behalf of the Almighty, who was at the top of their government. Korah was encouraging a democracy. He challenged Moses and Aaron in Numbers 16:3. You have gone too far, for all the community are holy, all of them, he said, and the Lord is in their midst. Why then do you raise yourselves above the Lord's congregation? Now Korah was partially correct. The Israelites were a holy people. In Exodus 19:6, Leviticus 11:44 through 45, Numbers 15:39 through 40, and Deuteronomy 14 verse 2, and Deuteronomy 28 verse 9. Israel was a holy people. So Korah appeared to have the Torah on his side when he challenged Moses by saying the entire congregation was holy. Yet a closer examination of these verses reveals that the Israelites were not inherently holy. Holiness was an aspiration. It was a goal to shoot for. The Israelites became holy by observing the mitzvot, the Torah's teachings and instructions. Korah's democratic rhetoric was aimed at a much bigger target. He was challenging the Almighty's divine presence in the camp. Dissatisfied with his status among the Levites, Korah proposed a system of government where merit and achievement could take precedence over birthright. If God resided in their midst and all the Israelites were a holy people, why should the tribe of Levi trump all others? His proposal appeared to be more equitable, ignoring tribal lineage and focusing on personal talents and accomplishments would give rise to better leadership, perhaps. That was Korah's thinking. More likely, however, Korah's motivation could have been to remove Moses and Aaron from leadership altogether and rule the Israelites without the yoke of the Torah. Korah rebelled immediately after learning about attaching a blue cord to the fringes on the corners of his garments. This instruction regarding the tzitzit was the conclusion of the previous parsha last week. Tzitzit reinforced a theocracy, a theocratic government, but it did not encourage the democracy that Korah envisioned. Korah suggested that Moses had abused his power. Moses was acutely mindful that power can corrupt religious leaders. So he found this accusation to be particularly galling. He complained bitterly to God in Numbers 16:15. He said, "Do not respect their offering. I have not taken one donkey from them, nor have I harmed any of them." Centuries later, the prophet Samuel spoke nearly the same words in his final address to the Israelite nation. This is found in the Haftarah to this parsha. Samuel insisted that his long reign as judge and prophet was marked by a high degree of honesty. He asked Israel in 1 Samuel 12:3, "Whose ox have I taken, or whose donkey have I taken? Or whom have I defrauded? Whom have I oppressed? Or from whose hand have I taken a bribe to blind my eyes with it? If so, I will restore it to you." In the midst of his rebellion, Korah failed to grasp the essence of what made the Israelites Kodesh, a holy nation. Holiness was the goal of their halakha, their Torah lifestyle. It was not imparted at birth. Holiness was the high target to aim for. The co-leaders of Korah's conspiracy were Dathan and Aviram, two brothers from the tribe of Reuben. Now, when we think about how the Israelites were camped around the tabernacle in the wilderness, we know that the Kohathites were on the south side of the tabernacle. The tribe of Reuben was right next to them going out from the tabernacle. So they were neighbors. Dathan and Aviram were neighbors of Korah, and this could be how they became friendly, how they began to conspire together, if you will. But these three attracted 250 chieftains to their cause. They were highly esteemed and noble men. Those who came over to their way of thinking were qualified to serve in the Sanhedrin. Yet they organized their own splinter congregation. This was not just a subgroup with a different point of view. They actively opposed Moses and Aaron and disrupted the Israelite pilgrimage to the land. They refused to come when Moses summoned them in Numbers 16, 12, and 13. Then they spoke wistfully about Egypt. We will not come up. Is it not enough that you have brought us out of a land flowing with milk and honey to have us die in the wilderness? But you would also lord it over us? Indeed, you have not brought us into a land flowing with milk and honey, nor have you given us an inheritance of fields and vineyards. Now these disaffected brothers lacked confidence in the Almighty's redemptive plan. They didn't trust Him. They didn't believe that He would redeem them from exile and bring them into a land of their own. Their nostalgia for Egypt and their implication that the Most High was unable to fulfill His covenant promises, those elements were far more dangerous to the camp of Israel than Korah's speech. This insurrection was a poison. It was a poison so threatening to the Israelite community that the Almighty had to purge the instigators from the camp. Dathan and Abiram, along with their wives, children, and possessions, were lost when the ground beneath them opened its mouth. Throughout the Tanakh, the ground is personified as having a mouth which can open, a mouth which speaks, and which swallows the casualties of human tragedy. The earth ingested these agitators. The punishment of Dathan and Abiram was measure for measure. They were sentenced according to the damage that they caused. Now let's consider that Moses initially summoned them to come up to the tabernacle. He called them to make aliyah or aliyah and ascend to the higher ground of the Mishkan. Their protest against going up to His dwelling place hindered the younger generation from going up or making aliyah to the promised land. By refusing to go up, these brothers had nowhere else to go but down. The earth swallowed the men and their families. Because they wouldn't go up to the Mishkan, they went down into the earth. The 250 chieftains were next. They stood with their copper fire pans, their maktot. This word can also mean censers, which were common in Egyptian households when the families would burn incense to their household deities. The Israelites, if you recall, received the Egyptian valuables when they were leaving the country, so they could easily have received the Egyptian censers along with their silver and gold at their departure from Egypt. A fire came from the presence of the Most High and consumed the 250 men who offered incense with copper censers. Now recall for a moment that Aaron's censer was made of gold. These censers are made of copper, and copper is a symbol for judgment. The number 250 has the same numeric value as the word ner. Ner means lamp. These men were appointed to be lamps for Israel, to be luminaries in the Israelite camp. But without the Torah, their light was extinguished. The biblical text is ambiguous regarding the fate of Korah himself. Was he swallowed up by the earth along with the disenchanted brothers? Or was he incinerated with the 250 chieftains when fire came out from the Almighty to destroy them? In essence, Korah was sentenced to both punishments. An earthquake and a divine fire were required to distinguish between chosen leaders, such as Moses and Aaron, and dissenting rulers like Korah and the chieftains, who were lightning rods of dissension. A plague took the lives of more than 14,000 grumbling people the following morning. The crowd understood that the divine presence was with them, but they were grieving over the loss of Korah and his followers. Aaron stopped the plague by filling his golden censer with coals from the altar. He ran among the Israelites to spread the smoke of burning incense. This was an act of intercession because incense denotes prayer in Scripture. King David wanted his prayers in Psalm 141, verse 2, to be counted as incense. In Revelation 8:3, the angel of the altar burns the prayers of the saints with incense. The term for incense is preceded by the little word et in Numbers 16:46. Grammatically, the word et indicates that the verb acts on the object rather than the subject in this sentence. This is Hebrew grammar, but its spelling is utterly profound. Et is spelled Aleph Tav. Aleph Tav are the first and last letters of the Hebrew alphabet, the beginning and the end. Now the Messiah, Yeshua, identifies himself with the Hebrew letters Aleph and Tav. He states in Revelation 1:8, I am the Alpha and Omega. And addressing John in Hebrew, he would have said, I am the Aleph and the Tav. Yeshua is in the beginning with the Creator and in the end of this present world. He is the author and the finisher, the first and the last of our faith. As the Aleph and Tav, Yeshua assigns himself to the word et in Numbers 16:46. He is the fragrant incense burning among the Israelites. Incense is ketoret. Et ketoret is the expression we find there. He places himself in that word et, that element of Hebrew grammar. He is the fragrant incense burning among the Israelites. He stands between the dead and the living as the atonement for the people. Every detail in Korach, this parsha, expressed an aspect of this story. Aaron's golden censer signified divinity, but the copper censers of the 250 chieftains signified judgment and sin. Following divine instructions, Moses removed the copper censers from the smoldering remains of the 250 men. Eleazar the priest hammered them out as plating for the altar of sacrifice. Numbers 16:40 explains the reason why. This verse says, as a reminder to the sons of Israel, that no layman who is not of the descendants of Aaron should come near to burn incense before the Lord, so that he will not become like Korah and his company. The Almighty placed their past mistakes on display for the purpose of reflection. The copper censers had undermined Moses and driven the questioning Israelites away. Yet the censers became part of the altar of sacrifice to draw the Israelites nearer or closer to him. When the Israelites saw the copper plating, they recalled the fate of those who had objected to the priesthood and his redemptive plan. This open reminder inspired them to pursue holiness rather than rebellion. Now, another depiction in this parsha is resurrection. In Numbers 17:8, Aaron's rod, which was cut from an almond tree, resurrected overnight. It resurrected to produce blossoms, buds, and ripe almonds. Almond comes from a Hebrew word which means to awaken. The almond tree awakens before any other tree. It is the first tree to spring from winter hibernation with signs of life early each spring. The almond is known as the tree of resurrection for this reason, because its blossoms and fruit form so rapidly when winter is barely over. Aaron's cut almond branch resurrected. His resurrected branch alluded to a future resurrection for the family of Korah. The Kohathites resurrected from Korah's rebellion to play a role in Israel's worship. When Solomon completed the temple, 120 Kohathites participated in the installation of the Ark of the Covenant. The Kohathites were worship leaders for the inauguration of the temple in 1 Chronicles 6:22. In the days of King Jehoshaphat, Judah was invaded by the Moabites, the Ammonites, and the Maonites. Their battle strategy to oppose these mighty armies was praise and worship. It is recorded that the sons of Korah led the congregation in worship. The Kohathites participated in the cleansing of the temple at the time of King Hezekiah, and they supervised the temple renovations for Josiah. They also authored Psalms 42 through 49 and Psalm 84, 85, 87, and 88. Now, this parsha is a testimony to us. It reveals that a dark past, our past mistakes, can be transformed into the glory of the kingdom. This happened for the Kohathites, and even though Korah initiated this rebellion and perished in the process, the descendants of his family became noble in the kingdom. I am Valerie Moody of Covenant Footsteps Ministries. Thank you for joining me. Shalom.